half studio, half graveyard, all Hollywood. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lee.
And this is Ghost Town.
We started as on time as we could make it. Why did I dress like a giant denim beanbag chair?
But Madison Square Garden, we love you.
So much, every one of you.
Dynasty Typewriter, hello, Los Angeles.
I see a couple lines and I want to leave.
Yeah.
Please don't leave. Donate money to our Patreon.
Yeah. Because there's people going to be listening to this podcast, so they won't get the benefit of kind of seeing what's going on here. So just let them know. I counted it's about 40K in here, 40,000 total, including us. Including us, 40,000.
We're of the people. We're just like you.
Yeah.
Literally, we're just like you. Help.
But everyone, I've had to describe, but I want to let the people listening know how drop dead gorgeous everyone is.
This is
smoking perfect tent. There's one 9 here though. There's one 9 and it's up to you to figure out who that is. So I also want to say, very polite, everyone didn't want to make Satan upset, so nobody sat in the seat saying reserved for Satan. Big Satan fans here? Big lovers of Satan?
Of the devil.
Well, either Satan is showing up late or he's already sitting here and you could sit on his lap. So if anybody wants to sit here, it was just a test.
Tell him what you want for Satan Christmas.
Yeah. There's got to be a better name than Satan Christmas. There's got to be something catchy.
Answer them all.
Yeah.
You just have to be respectful.
Yeah. I guess Halloween would be Satan Christmas, right?
Halloween. Hallows Eve.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll figure it out later. Not now.
Yeah, I guess that's a whole other. Why are we wasting time?
Well, that's what we do. We waste time.
Exactly.
If you think, we're disorganized here, when we do this in order, at home, if we record these, it's way more disorganized.
I'm so happy to not be in my cat urine soaked apartment right
now.
I'm home.
Yeah.
We have real microphones.
Yeah,
we record at home. So you're here for a live podcast recording.
Our very first one.
Very first one.
Of like a multi-level marketing thing, but we're not offering anything. We're not even promising anything.
This is not the first time we're talking about Ponzi schemes.
Yeah.
We're just sit tight.
Yeah.
We usually record in my apartment in Echo Park. We have a microphone with 4 coasters.
4 coasters.
Propping it up to get it to
That's the industry standard, is 4 coasters to put it on.
We feel sexy with 5 coasters.
Yeah, that's
if you want to go like
what? Yeah, like that. What? We're doing that. That's when we put 5.
We're here to party.
Yeah. We're gonna be we're talking about like some fun stuff, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about some great stuff. Again, you're here for a live podcast recording. You're gonna see how we do it. We're gonna pause for a commercial break. Don't freak out.
Yeah. That's where we make all the big money.
That's where we get the
money.
Yeah.
$6, $7, stop.
$2 Patreon, just make it rain.
Yeah.
It's great. It's gonna be real fun.
Yeah.
I got my MFA in writing, so my dad is here. It's what you wanted for me.
Dropped out of community college 5 different times and in the same spot. So who knows, right? Who knows what the right answer is? You don't know.
I'm not sure.
Don't know.
Woof. Well, we are really excited to do this. We're going to be talking about Hollywood. I think I peeped the sheet to know what we're talking about, because I haven't done extensive research on this. We're going to be talking about Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Ooh.
Yeah, and Paramount.
Ooh. And Chipotle. I don't know. I just throw it in there in case they want to sponsor us. To show them that I'm really good at it.
Okay, excellent. And we will have some supplemental materials on the screen here.
Yeah.
I made a slideshow about 15 minutes ago, so you're welcome.
It's not going to be like your weird folder, right? It's not going to.
My weird folder.
I know you got a weird folder in there.
Corny weird folder. Anyway, we're also very excited because we have a special guest joining us. It's our first guest ever.
Yeah, first guest ever, secret special guest.
Yeah, she's not at all affiliated with Paramount, so don't even ask her.
Yeah, get it out of your head.
Affiliate, she doesn't work there, she's never made money there, she is not at all a tome of information about Paramount, so keep it in here.
She doesn't even know how to spell Paramount. I asked her. That's how. Does disassociated she is with Paramount Studios. Well, I mean, we found her at MacArthur Park. She was
wandering, looking for parking.
not H. She wasn't looking for H. She was looking for parking. Yeah.
Oh.
Are you gonna do like a Tinder joke next, or what's happening here?
No Tinder jokes this time, and I'm gonna try not to swear because my family here. And if there's anything that's not gonna make me swear on a recording, it's having a bunch of family members here. So we're gonna do our best. I was just thinking. Okay, no. Anyway, so why don't we bring out our guest?
Yeah. All the way from nowhere near Paramount Studios.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So don't ask her anything about it.
Paige Smith. Paige, are you still awake? I checked out. Yeah, thank you. So we can get into the thing, right?
Yes. Oh my God.
Let's get into the thing.
Let's get in.
To it. Now we begin the content.
So it begins. Buckle up. Grab your LaCroix. I read off of a sheet of paper because I'm a historian, and you should take me very seriously. These are all incredibly serious sources that I get. Don't watch me put my password in. Everyone turn around. But yeah, we have some supplemental material. Like the podcast, I read off of paper, so that's a reality of what you're going to be witnessing. Don't look.
Did you ever think you'd come to a place where you'd sit and watch someone read off a Wikipedia page? Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that we'll do anything for fame? Anything.
Exactly. All right. So, Hollywood Forever Cemetery. It's one of the oldest cemeteries in Los Angeles. It's located in Hollywood, obviously, at 6000 Santa Monica Boulevard between Gower and Van Ness. On the Melrose side of the lot is the iconic Paramount Studios. You don't know anything about that, though,
Never
right?
been.
Yeah.
All right,
Nope,
good.
never been there.
The plot of land is the final resting place of Cecil B. DeMille, Johnny Ramone, Estelle Getty, Judy Garland, Zoolander 2, Indiana Jones.
These are in order, by the way.
Monster Trucks, Daddy's Home 2. So here's some Hollywood, and even my grandfather and great-grandparents. How about that? You know that about me, huh? You know a lot about my dating history.
It didn't just happen yesterday, so you don't have to be so sad. You know, just, right?
What?
It didn't just happen yesterday, right? Everyone got really sad when you said it.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I've worked through it. We can laugh together at it. Great. So Hollywood Forever was founded in 1899 on 100 acres and called, originally enough, Hollywood Cemetery by F.W. Samuelson and a guy named Lombard. No, we don't know his first name. No further questions. Now, Hollywood, as you can see at the time, was really rural. These were like trees. It had a population of about 100,000 people, which was surprising to me, and was kind of conceived of as an agricultural community. Now, it was founded by a guy named H.J. Whitley. He is buried in Hollywood Forever, and we don't know where the name Hollywood came from. Let me change this slide to the next one. See that?
Old-timey.
Exactly. We don't know where it came from. There's a legend that has it that he was looking over his land from the Hollywood Hills, and he saw a guy coming up the hill, and he had a bunch of wood with him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He said, "Hauling wood," and he said Hollywood, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Another story about his wife coming on a train from Ohio to Hollywood, and she struck up a conversation with an Ohio woman who had a farm called Hollywood, and his wife liked that name so much that they named this plot of land Hollywood. Now, holly doesn't grow in Hollywood, so I guess we'll never know. No?
We're not going to figure it out today.
No, you don't want it?
No, that's okay.
All right, fine. In 1897, Lombard and Samuelson, along with some other rich white Hollywood people, formed a corporation known as the Hollywood Cemetery Association. You're going to have to just deal with this, everybody. Just slight pause for the next slide. This is what Hollywood Forever looked like back in the day. The cemetery sold off large tracts to Paramount Pictures, which, with RKO Pictures, bought 40 acres by 1920. Part of the remaining land was set aside for the Bethlehem Cemetery, dedicated Jewish burial ground for the members of the local Jewish community, including, here's an old photo of the cemetery grounds, my grandfather's grave, too. How about that? Oh, I didn't think we would get any.
Oh, no, you get quite a lot of those.
And his parents, who are next to him on the south side, right there. Now, he was supposed to be buried, and my dad's in the back, so he will chime in, or my uncle too. What cemetery was he supposed to be buried in? I forget.
Groman Eden.
Groman Eden. But someone else took his plot. There's a lot of family tumultuousness. I won't get into it because you guys are strangers to them. That seems like a lot. But anyway, they essentially just wedged my grandfather into Hollywood Forever Cemetery, like under some tree roots, which is a lot how my family operates. Heartwarming story. And Paramount now. Let's get into that. Here's an old Paramount Pictures pic. Paramount is the 5th oldest surviving film studio in the world after the French studios Gaumont Film Company, made in 1895, Pathé, which was founded in 1896, the Nordsick Film Company in 1906, and Universal Studios in 1912, right down the road, right? It's the last major film studio still headquartered in the Hollywood district of Los Angeles. Paramount Pictures dates in its existence from 1912, founding of the Famous Players Film Company. Like Sid Groman, Hungarian-born founder Adolf Zucker, who happened to be like a huge fan of cinema, saw that movies appealed to working-class immigrants. With partners Daniel Frohman and Charles Frohman, he planned to offer family-friendly, feature-length films starring leading theatrical players of the time. By mid-1913, Famous Players had completed 5 films, and Zucker was on his way to success. That same year, another aspiring producer, Jesse J. Lasky, opened his Lasky Feature Play Company with money borrowed from his brother-in-law, Samuel Goldfish, which you might know as Samuel Goldwyn. The Lasky Company hired as their first employee a stage director with virtually no experience, a man named Cecil B. DeMille, who would find a suitable site in Hollywood near Los Angeles for his first feature film, The Squaw Man, which I have not seen, but I assume it is not politically correct.
You're doing great, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm here. Killing it.
You chime in.
I have a little Paramount story, a real
Yeah?
Paramount story.
Wait.
Just real quick, I just thought of it.
That's such
Yeah, I mean, he'll love this.
Great.
I went pretty recently on a tour. My mother was in town,
Yeah.
and there was a bench for the movie Forrest Gump. Right? You don't know anything
I've
about
heard that that's there.
Yeah, but you have no
Yeah.
idea. So my mother, she sat and she took a picture and she posted it on Facebook. She doesn't understand what autocorrect is, so it says sitting on the Forrest Gump bench. We had a text chain going with everyone in my family. I have like 5 brothers and sisters. We're like, hey, should we tell her? And we're like, no, we're shitty kids, so we didn't tell her. So we left it sitting on the Forrest Gump bench for like a week because that's how she's gonna learn her lesson, I guess.
The Forrest Gump bench is not on the tour on Saturday at noon.
Yeah.
We'll not go there.
Yeah.
So.
Also, my dad got his Instagram hacked. But he doesn't know how to use it. He doesn't know how to use it, so he doesn't deserve to get access back. So now it's selling vape pens. It's selling vape pens. And he doesn't know what to do, but he doesn't deserve it.
I'm digging this Hollywood history.
He's Jewish, isn't that close enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hollywood, run by Jewish media.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. We'll find out.
All right, we're gonna find out. It is. I mean, historically, it is.
Turn it on us.
Calm down.
Show them your grandpa's grave again.
Yeah, quick. Starting in 1914, both Lasky and Famous Players released their films through a startup company, Paramount Pictures Corporation. In 1916, Zucker maneuvered a 3-way merger of Famous Players, the Lasky Company, and Paramount. Paramount Pictures soon dominated the new emerging film industry. So because Zucker was passionate about actors, he signed and developed many of the leading early stars, including Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Gloria Swanson, Rudolph Valentino, many of which are buried in Hollywood forever. We'll get there. The driving force behind Paramount's rise was Zucker. Throughout the teens and 20s, he built the Public Theaters Corporation, a chain of nearly 2,000 screens, ran 2 production studios in Astoria and Hollywood, and became an early investor in radio. Paramount was also one of his first Hollywood studios to release what were known at the time as talkies, which I believe are still popular now.
Yeah. Going strong, yeah.
Going strong?
Yeah.
Anyone?
We're going to be in one day, aren't we?
Girl can dream.
Yep.
But let's get back to some cemetery scandal because this is where it gets real juicy. In 1939, Canadian transplant Jules A. Hein Frederick Roth, lots of names. There he is, baby!
Superimposed.
That's the only picture I can find.
That's some like clip art action right there.
Of the cemetery
Yeah.
with that like glaze, like halo behind it. Yeah,
But so close to his face.
yeah. He's actually.
We can't tell if he has hair or not.
He bought a 51% stake in the cemetery, which was the internment site of his parents. Now, Jules Roth was a real piece of shit. If you have a friend and you're moving to Hollywood, and they're like, Hollywood, they think of this guy. He is a real D-bag. Born July 23rd, 1900, he wore nice clothes, he had a sexy car, he had a lot of money.
I don't like him already.
And he seemed rich, even though he wasn't, and he kind of was, but whatever. The reality was he was a total con man. In his early 20s, when Roth met a fellow piece of shit con artist named C.C. Julian, a man who had been taking advantage of the tremendous oil boom occurring in Southern California. By using an actual kind of creative newspaper advertising style, Julian had earned millions of dollars in a pyramid scheme, allowing him the money to set up oil derricks and gas stations across the region called Julian Oil Company. But karma's a bitch, and it wasn't long before things began to fall apart with the Julian Petroleum Company. With Roth acting as vice president of the company and lots of fraudulent maneuverings, stock watered down, and if you like records as a whole, suspicions grew. And after the public found out that Julian had sold all his shares of the company, the authorities finally caught wind. A number of men went to jail, but Roth and Julian took the classy route by fleeing the country. Julian made it to Shanghai, burned through the rest of his cash, and committed suicide in 1934.
That's the way to go. That's the way to do it. That's the way to go.
Meanwhile, Roth wanted on 39 accounts, nice, no password, including grand theft.
Now he's just staring at me. Oh, okay, he's back there.
Still there, he's persistent. Including grand theft and securities violations, retreated back to Canada. He was apprehended in Winnipeg, and after his court hearing, Roth snuck through a door reserved for jurors before disappearing to New York, where again he was arrested and taken to Los Angeles. So there he was convicted on 21 counts during his month-long trial, and Roth was sentenced to 9 to 95 years of incarceration.
He picked 9 when he was. I'll take 9.
Yeah, in San Quentin. But of course, he was a wealthy white man and got paroled in 1937 after only 5 years. Hollywood, what's your dream? But something happens to you at a certain point in your life, like you're reevaluating, you're newly out of jail after fleeing the country, and you're like, what do I want to do? I'm gonna maybe get divorced from my wife, I'm gonna buy a new car, I'm gonna travel the country. This guy, at the age of 36, just bought the cemetery where his parents were buried in full. Really did it up.
Plot twist, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's coming.
You might think, why did they let a criminal buy a famous cemetery? Well, Glendale's Forest Lawn Cemetery, built...
No one was thinking that.
No one was thinking that?
Not at all.
I was sure everyone was thinking that.
None of them.
Well,
Nope, don't do that.
Glendale's Forest Lawn Cemetery was built in 1906, and it famously has James Stewart, Jean Harlow, Humphrey Bogart, Carol Lombard, Errol Flynn, Mary Pickford, Gene Autry, Cubby Broccoli, my favorite name to say ever. They were gaining a reputation as more of like the Hollywood cemetery. You know, in the race of Hollywood cemeteries, they were
It's a war. You know what I mean?
premium Hollywood cemetery happening. So Hollywood Forever was losing a lot of cachet. So then Roth took ownership of it, and it further lost cachet. So after buying the cemetery, Jules Roth got busy using the cemetery known as Hollywood Memorial Park's operating money to pay for a lot of personal luxuries. And still, things went downhill. And another note, like most cemeteries in the country, and most of the country at the time, it was a segregated cemetery. Enter actor Hattie McDaniel. Good girl.
I got a little clap back there, thank you. I had a little tiny little clap.
It's a little like a respectful
Yeah, it was a nice
clap
performance.
for a decorated actor.
Yeah, this is the theater.
Yeah, exactly. So she was best known for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind, which she won an Oscar for, the first African American
Which is
woman.
missing. Did you know that?
I didn't know
They
that.
don't know where the Hattie McDaniel Oscar is.
What?
Yeah. So she donated her Oscar to Howard University,
Oh.
and then when she passed away, she owed money to the government. They sold all of her property, including the Oscar, but then it got donated back to Howard, and Howard doesn't know where it is.
Oh.
They say they never got it back. Other people say It was stolen.
And it's up to us to figure it out. We're not leaving until we figure this out.
You're leaving your parking spots, your well-gotten parking spots. We're going now, tonight. The stroke has been doing.
The popular rumor is that it was thrown into the river, but
Into what?
the Potomac.
Oh. Yes. Yeah, that checks out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
The great old Potomac.
Snow melted down, I mean, it's thrown into a river.
Yeah.
I think when this planet, when the riverbeds are drying out, we're gonna find a lot of weird shit down there. Like maybe an
A
Oscar.
lot of Oscars.
Absolutely. So Hollywood Forever, she wanted to be buried in it because a lot of her peers were being buried there. Of course, Roth would not allow it because she was an African-American woman. However, Hollywood Forever would be desegregated 7 years later, again, much against the wishes of Roth. And things kept getting worse at Hollywood Forever. In July 1974, the crematory was shut down after singer Cass Elliot was cremated. According to cemetery ground supervisor, the crematory was in such disrepair that as she was being cremated, the bricks were just like crumbling down on her body. It's very graphic.
And that was the last.
Sorry.
That was the last cremation they did for a long time.
Yeah.
Was hers.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it was-
until 2002, which we will get to.
Yeah.
But what a last round of
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, we can't do anymore because we don't have a crematorium anymore because there's bricks mixed into body ash.
I feel like at that
I don't
time,
know.
Hollywood, like there was just economic depression,
Uh-huh.
all over the country, New York and here, and there was like gas shortages and a lot of crime and stuff like that. So everything was kind of falling by the wayside at that time.
Including Paramount Studios, which was also not in a good place. Eventually, Zucker shed most of his early partners and then blamed for the near collapse of Paramount in the Depression years. He was tossed out by the board of directors. His overexpansion and use of overvalued Paramount stock for purchases led the company into receivership in 1933. A bank-mandated reorganization team led by John Hertz and Otto Kahn kept the company intact, and miraculously, Zucker was kept on. In 1935, Paramount Publix went bankrupt. In June 1935, Johnny Otterson and Barney Balaban became president, and Zucker was bumped up to chairman of the board.
Who saw that come?
Calling up. Zucker reorganized the company as Paramount Pictures and was able to successfully bring the studio out of bankruptcy. Maybe worthwhile.
We're back in.
Yeah, here we go. Their parent company, Gulf and Western, explored selling the studio lot, offering the land back to Jules Roth so he could expand the cemetery. But because he really liked his money going more to jewels, hot tubs, PJs, he passed. So Paramount kept the studio, which is a really good thing because if it sold, movies like The Godfather would probably never have gotten made. Francis Ford Coppola wouldn't have directed. He was a Paramount hire and a real push on Paramount.
I was in the part of that tour that I went on with my mother, the one where she sat on the Forrest Hump bench.
Yeah.
That one, that one?
Yeah.
We were in one of the room, the studio. Whatever they filmed there, it's like, how about a quiz show? Whatever it was filming there at the time, but that's where they filmed the Godfather. Have you heard about that one, Paige?
Yeah, vaguely, just in my research. But Francis Ford Coppola was a demand of the mafia. They actually said they needed an Italian-American.
Because they were going to call it the mafia. I think and they were like, can't do that. Can't call it the mafia.
Yeah, so there were certain demands the mafia had if The Godfather was going to be made because they were not super thrilled about this movie. One of them was they had to hire an Italian-American to direct it. And they weren't allowed to use the word mafia.
And they had to have two members of.
So they call them the family.
Yeah. They had to have two. They had to have two members, I believe, of the mafia on set at all time. And then they had another one where they're like, "Hey, we're getting a lot out of this." So they were like, "Hey, we want I guess all our friends and extended family to be in the movie.
Yeah.
Is that cool, real quick?" Like, so the scene.
Well, Paramount's not going to argue with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, they don't have a
They want to
choice.
be in the movie.
Whatever you want.
So the scene where they're at the wedding, all those wedding guests are all friends and family of the mafia.
Yeah.
Even the
One of his
children
star-
running around with the
Whoa.
mafia kids.
Yeah.
Tiny mafioso extras.
Yeah.
Baby-sized mafia members.
Yeah.
Running amok.
Tiny little mafias running around.
Jesus. Okay, so we're gonna stop for a quick break,
Yeah. And we're back.
and we're back.
That's how it works. Technology fills in the gaps,
Yeah,
people.
exactly. So by the 1980s, the California Cemetery Board began receiving regular complaints from the families of the people interred there. Family members complained that the grounds were not kept up. There was graffiti everywhere. There was trash everywhere. The heirs of the well-known makeup artist Max Factor, who was in Bethlehem Mausoleum in 1938, moved his and other Factor family remains to Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City after the mausoleum sustained water damage that made the walls like this horrible shit stain.
It was this color blue.
Color.
It was like
Whoa,
this color blue
that's
right
beautiful.
here. Yeah, it was like that.
That's avant-garde
Yeah,
broadcasting.
yeah.
Right there. It's very indie. Anyway, in 1986, a Los Angeles woman and 1,000 other plot owners filed a class action lawsuit against the cemetery for invasion of privacy after they discovered that Roth allowed employees of Paramount Pictures to just park in the lot when Paramount was under construction. Just everyone, come on in.
Which I totally don't do anymore.
Oh, insider you.
Deep cuts.
No, just park in the cemetery if you're late for work, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a little hack for you.
Life hack.
You're welcome. Donate to Patreon. Things came to a head in the 1980s because Jules Roth needed to settle some tax bills and maintain his lavish lifestyle. He sold 2 lawns totaling 3 acres that were facing the Santa Monica Boulevard front of the property to a couple strip malls. Now, this is the most exclusive photo I have, everybody.
And we're only at the 80s, people, so strap in, okay? So if you're wondering how long is this, we're only at 1980. January 1st, 1980.
You've seen it here first. We're making history.
There's a little Caesars on this side.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Ghost town. Ghost town. I actually used to live pretty close to here when I first moved out to.
Do you know, when I first moved here, I did not get an apartment because I was talking to the landlady, and she was like, she was Orthodox, and I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to a movie screening at Sinespia, and she was like, that's disrespectful to be like, celebrating and entertaining, and then she was like not gonna rent me the place.
Whoa.
Yeah.
She didn't rent it to you?
No, but I bought it and kicked her out. No, I'm kidding, nothing like that. I didn't do anything. Unemployed just like now, so nothing's changed.
Life in LA, baby. Yeah, I used to go to this video hut down the way that I used to. My first apartment in LA, I guess it was my second apartment, was just like immediately got bed bugs.
Yeah.
Like immediately I would just walk along Santa Monica. It's okay, I'm in a better place. Look at me now.
Yeah.
Cars are parked, people.
Yeah.
So I just walk in the video hut, get some videos, head back to my bed-bug-ridden apartment, and just check my phone a lot.
Did you rent the same movie over and over again, or was it just like, did you mix it up?
I would mix it up. I mean, they had like 6 movies there to begin with.
Yeah.
So you just rotate through it, and then you'd stop at Little Caesars.
Would you rent Slackers?
Slackers. Yeah. All the time.
Yeah,
Slackers.
Biodome.
What is?
I can't think of movies. I can't think of movie names. Forrest Gump. Yeah, that is a movie. That is a movie. Don't ask me how I know that's a
subtitle
movie.
of this podcast recording.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to it, you guys.
Yeah.
Let's
We're
focus back.
1980.
1994.
Oh, we
Wow.
jumped ahead.
Yeah,
Lucky
we
you
jumped
guys.
ahead. So in 1984, the Northridge earthquake damaged the crypts, and Roth didn't have the funds to repair it. To give you context,
Not the not the other crypts. I don't know who's. It might be in the. I don't know who's
the
here.
crypts, all of the crypts.
Yeah, I was thinking of.
The gang, the crypts.
You know, I'm from the streets. What I always go to.
Holy.
Actually, you know, speaking of a Northridge earthquake, my wife who was here and my mother-in-law, they were in it, and my wife narrowly escaped death.
Whoa.
For real talk. It's real talk. Yeah, I'm using my wife for content.
How much is the ceiling of the Dynasty Typewriter? Oh, sorry. Okay, good. I'll save it. Thank you.
Yeah, she was supposed to. She stayed at a friend's house, and the roof collapsed where she would be sleeping, and she would stay at her friend's. And then I'd be single, baby. In that video hut.
Thank God you lived.
Not for her.
I know you a long ass time.
Not good. Not good.
Wow. Okay, so Roth did not have the funds to repair any of the damage that the Northridge earthquake made. To give you context, at the time, Hollywood Cemetery's only revenue was charging families $500 to exhume their graves and move them elsewhere. They would pay families $500 to dig up their loved ones and take them wherever.
For inflation, what's that in inflation now? $60,000. I don't know. I dropped out of community college 5 times. What do I know? You got the MFA.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, $800. And that's my final offer.
All right, sounds good.
Fine. So Roth didn't care. In 1987, Jules Roth became ill after he fell in his Hollywood Hills home. He surprisingly had been embroiled in a scandalous associates and maid, who were the only witnesses to this change and the signature on the change. I'm not a detective, I'm certainly not a historian, as you guys have seen, but I think that there's something up with that.
Yeah, something's amiss.
Something's afoot, a little fishy. His relatives, which were listed in his previous will, were written out. Bummer. Also, like, his relatives probably put up with a lot of shit. You know? I feel really bad. Like, throw them 500.
Yeah, 500.
To move their graves. Roth died on January 4th, 1998, in an ironic twist. He was buried next to his wife, Virginia, his father, and his mother in the Cathedral Mausoleum because the state of California had revoked the cemetery's license to sell its remaining internment spaces. Ousted from his own cemetery.
He probably had a lot of bad karma.
Yeah.
A lot of things following that guy.
Most certainly. We should have reserved a seat for his ghost.
Yeah.
Here. Although I don't think you like what I am saying.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Okay.
I need to hear his side of the story, but whatever.
Yeah, that's true. I'm biased.
Yeah.
He's just trying to make a buck. After Roth's death, Tayo LLC bought the now 62-acre Hollywood Forever on the verge of closure in a bankruptcy proceeding in 1998 for $375,000. Now, Tylo LLC was made of some young, hot 20-something brothers, Tyler and Grant Cassidy.
Twins, baby.
Oh, shit. Hello.
The Dylan and Brandon of cemeteries.
They look like the two Corys.
Yeah.
Just like that.
It's like two JTTs.
Yeah.
So they were part of a wealthy Missouri family of cemetery proprietors. Oh, but they have some shit too. They discovered that the cemetery's endowment care fund meant to care for the cemetery in perpetuity was missing. Wait for it, $9 million. Just a cool $9 million. The Cassidys also claim that they discovered Mr. Roth's bust in an antique shop. It was part of his personal artifacts that were sold at auction. And another glorious fuck you to the con man of Hollywood Forever. In 1999, the 47th anniversary of Hattie McDaniel's death, the Cassidys dedicated a memorial in her honor at a prime location inside of the graveyard.
Primo spot.
They did offer to move her remains to the cemetery, but her family said, no, we don't want to do that. Don't disturb the remains. Yeah.
And they were like, 5 honeys? No, thank you. So the Cassidy brothers invested millions in revitalizing Hollywood Forever and also put a pretty hip, here we go, hip spin on things.
Those khakis.
I took this a couple days ago, and that's kind of how it looked then too. How about that? Pretty sweet. They do documentaries there that are played in perpetuity on kiosks, and they're posted on the web of the people that have died there, so they really revitalize their lives. They do screenings on the weekends during the summer. Sinespia, we talked about all of that.
Have you gone to a lot of them?
Yeah, although last time I went to Sinespia, I couldn't get a seat in the grass.
Oh yeah.
If you guys go to Sinespia,
there's a science
get
to
a
it.
seat on the fucking grass.
Yeah.
Because if you do not, and you sit on the sidewalk, the pavement, we just had, it was like me and I was like, oh, friend from out of town, this will be a nice thing. And first of all, we were watching Saturday Night Fever, which is holy. Have you seen Saturday Night Fever recently? Wow. Not a picnic in the graveyard type of a movie.
The last thing I think I saw there was Showgirls. And it was, and what, Elizabeth,
Berkeley.
no,
Not Banks.
Berkeley, yeah,
Okay.
Elizabeth Banks, no. Elizabeth Berkeley was there, she was there, yeah, she showed up, yeah.
Wow.
She tried to hook up with me too, it was so weird.
Yeah.
I was like, get away, man. She's like, I bet you're gonna do a podcast in a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. She's actually doing the podcast, will be there.
Yeah.
She didn't buy a ticket though.
Right.
I was looking for her name.
Yeah, no, she was.
Yeah. No, when I was there, I was sitting on the pavement watching Saturday Night Fever with a friend from out of town. It was cold, and a torrent of cockroaches, like giant cockroaches, like came at it, like building cockroaches. And I was like, it's cool, grab the breeze.
See, I think here's the thing: is you had bed bugs, and the cockroaches. Is it them or is it you? I don't know.
I'm gonna stand up. My impulse is to stand up and leave, but I won't. You got more to say. Okay, so they were doing all these cool things. It's still being held. Sinespia is a real fun part of the cemetery. Blah blah blah. Just kidding. It's great. It is fun. I don't know why I said it like that.
You can wear a big hat. You can wear a scarf. You can wear a big flowy hat. Have you gone?
No, I never have.
Oh really?
I actually haven't.
Get a big old hat.
Okay.
Get a big old
night?
like
Isn't it
floppy
at
hat.
nighttime?
Well, it starts during the day, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And make sure to
Six.
like bring wine and a little table with your bros and stuff like that. And then stand up like right in the middle of the movie when people are trying to watch it. Be like, dude, that's crazy, right? She's naked in the pool.
Is that what the big hat is for?
What?
Black, isn't it?
There's just a lot of people with big flowy hats.
I haven't been there in years. But anyway, they reopened. Good news is, Jason, they reopened the crematorium in 2002.
Yeah.
How about that? Round of applause.
Yeah, wow.
Crematorium.
Yeah.
The party can continue.
Yeah.
So as Hollywood Forever's profile in Los Angeles gained favor, business improved. The cemetery became a popular location for Russian clients who cherished monuments atop their graves.
There's a lot of Russian
Yeah,
names.
there's 30% of the cemetery is now Russian.
I saw it, like it was an article
That's
like
not. That's not.
it was like Russians dying to get buried at the Hollywood Forever or something like that.
That was the
that was like the
title
click.
of
Yeah, that was the of this article.
That's
Like,
a horrible title.
well, I think they were like dying to get in.
Yeah, I get it.
You know.
I get it. No, say it one more time.
Russians
Okay.
die. Okay.
Most cemeteries.
Not Russian, by the
Okay.
way. Right there.
Jennifer was not Russian, but he does have a pretty great, pretty iconic memorial gravestone. But most cemeteries ban monuments for religious reasons. Hollywood Forever has no restrictions. Custom designed headstones include towering blocks of granite, life-size statues and elaborate portraits engraved in stone. They will go from $20,000 to $200,000. So they're making that money now, you know?
Those brothers.
Those brothers.
Oh.
If you're listening and you're not here, you're not one of the thousands of people at our live podcast. First of all, next time, figure it out. And also, we're gonna put up some pictures. We're gonna put up some steamy pictures of the
Yeah.
Cassidy brothers.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be great. But in 2010, scandal returned. Jules Roth would be so proud. Brent Cassidy and his father were arrested for running a Ponzi-like scheme and stealing.
With a name like Brent Cassidy, you know he's doing that,
Yeah.
right? That's the kind of name that person does
He's
that.
the kind of guy that like paid someone to make him a single.
Yeah.
Like a music career for
Oh
a
yeah,
second.
yeah.
Yeah, like Rebecca Black style. Anyway, he was also doing Ponzi shit. So he was arrested for stealing more than $450 million from a pre-need funeral company they ran in Missouri. Authorities determined most of the money used to renovate Hollywood Forever came from these ill-gotten proceeds. Brent and his father pleaded guilty to wire fraud and money laundering and were sentenced to prison. Tyler Cassidy was not charged in the case. He's okay, but Brent sold his interest, and now it's a family-owned trust with a board of directors. And even to this day, Hollywood Forever continues to thrive, and celebrities are again choosing the location for their last rites. George Harrison was cremated at Hollywood Forever, and his ashes were scattered in India. Other recent burials are Tony Scott, Chris Cornell, and you know...
Scott Weiland, was his name?
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Fred Armisen will be buried there.
Right.
On the tour, if you take the tour, we'll all go by.
Yeah.
So
It says, yeah, that's a real thing, yeah.
It is a real. We're not making any of this up.
No.
You said it like we made some stuff up.
They had to figure it out, though.
It's got to run.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I thought it was a murder mystery. I thought we were doing a murder mystery.
Where is Satan?
Yeah, Satan, maybe he's there. I don't know what he looks like.
I don't know. So you put some stuff in the cemetery, but you got to take some stuff out. So in 2017, there was a Confederate monument in Hollywood Forever, put in by the Long Beach chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy. And in 2017, again, it was taken out. Bring stuff in, Kamari it out. Does it bring you joy? No? Does the Confederate monument bring you joy? Get it out.
Yeah.
Get out of there. And Paramount, too, after all of this, they had their own ups and downs. Persists, as you might know. In 1994, Paramount was bought by Viacom, and in 2006, Paramount became a parent of DreamWorks Pictures, and surprisingly enough, is arguably more haunted than its neighbor, Hollywood Forever.
Ooh.
So now we get to the real facts.
You want me to do that? Are you jumping? You going to Paramount now?
No, we're going to ghost shit now.
Okay. So I have some.
Yeah, wanna say some stuff?
Do you want to? I just have a couple of little fun little facts.
Yeah, say
about
some
something.
facts.
Yeah. So we talked about. We saw like the Johnny Ramone monument is like pretty popular, right? It's like pretty much the one people go to. So for one thing, he's not in there. His ashes are with his wife Linda Ramone,
Okay.
and when she dies, both of their ashes will go in there. So right now, it's just really it's like kind of symbolic, but how Joey Ramone got the idea, because Ramone, I don't know if any Ramones fans out there, I'm a huge Ramones fan. I met Joey Ramone.
Okay,
He's super
relax.
cool. Well, I don't know. I like to talk. I'd like to. I'm a huge. This is my fun part. Let me do my fun thing. You had the Cassidy brothers. You know what I mean?
Cassidy's.
We all did though, didn't we?
Yeah,
we all had a little piece.
We all
had a little tiny piece.
We're forever bound.
But I kind of like wondered like why, you know what I mean, why Johnny Ramone would want to be, because he's kind of a more conservative Republican type. So I thought maybe he would be like Hollywood, but Dee Dee Ramone, also Ramones, who died at 6740 Franklin, a little fun thing, died of a heroin overdose. He was buried there, and because he died there and he was living there, Johnny Ramone went there and he's like, I want to be buried here. You know, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he wanted it to be like Jim Morrison's, his grave in Paris. He's like, I want it to be something like that where people can kind of come and kind of, you know, make it a thing and celebrate. So that's kind of how that came about. I'm gonna do another little Ramones connection. Alana Clarkson, who is also buried there, and she was killed. I guess not according to Phil Spector. She was
loved guns.
Yeah, she just loved. Well, so Lana Clarkson, she was working at the House of Blues. She met Phil Spector and was like, "I'm gonna go home with this dude.
Yeah.
Seems pretty chill.
Yeah,
seems like a hell of a guy."
He carries 4 guns with him, and he has 40 in his home.
Yeah, and one is in his hair. Like one is lodged in his big ass bacon
You're
hair.
just thinking of that one picture of him.
That's why would I think of a different
His
picture?
hair is like-
If I have that, why do I need another
It's
one?
like a David Lynch movie
Yeah.
in one photo.
Yes. So she's like, I'm gonna go home with him, and the driver was outside, and Phil Spector comes and hears a gunshot. Phil Spector comes out. He's like, I think I shot her. Then Phil Spector said, no, just kidding, haha. She wanted to kill her. She wanted to kiss the gun, meaning suicide. But
that's a cool guy.
now there's a lot of Phil Spector fans, Phil Spector stands out there. Sorry. He probably did. I mean, he probably definitely did it.
My family also has a Phil Spector connection, I believe, right? They're nodding in the back. Is that true? Right?
This is true.
Yeah. My great uncle
Phil.
Great uncle
Phil Spector.
I'm related to Phil Spector. That's the name of the Beatles. No, my great uncle Marshall was in the band the Teddy Bears.
Oh, that was his band, yeah.
Phil Spector.
Yeah.
That's it.
But Phil Spector produced he produced a lot of great albums and stuff like that. One was the Ramones, End of the Century. Do you remember Rock on Radio, Chinese Rocks? And he would like literally, like they'd be there 14, 15 hours and not record any music. And then there'd be a thing where you just like hit the drum once for hours. And then they're like, we're gonna go. He's like, nope, I got a gun. You're staying here.
Yeah.
That was Phil
It's like Wall of
Spector.
Sound, how about Wall of Guns?
Yeah.
Oh, that reference.
Yeah.
It's my one musical reference that I've ever known.
Little Beach Boys.
How about that?
Yeah.
Phil Spector.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast about Phil Spector.
Yeah.
Someday. Right?
Yeah.
You could go.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Your grandfather did.
Exactly. If you can make some kind of connection, you can be there.
I have to be related to him too somehow.
Not related. Maybe you served him some pizza one time. If you ever had a wait staff position.
How
Maybe
long has he been in jail
saw a
for?
picture. Have you seen that picture?
Since
of him?
2009, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He murdered her in 2003. I believe it's correctly, and finally, like in 2009, and he's not allowed to wear his wig in jail.
Yeah.
Cruel.
I think that's the only.
The criminal.
That's the only
industrial
thing they report
complex.
on.
Yeah.
It's always like the status of Phil Spector's wigs.
Yeah. All his pictures are all different hairs. Everyone is different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Collect them all.
Yeah. Gotta catch them all.
You can be his prison pen pal. We should get on that.
All right.
Right to
I don't
Phil
know.
Spector.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet he doesn't get a lot of mail.
I don't know.
No,
More or less than Charles Manson.
With the way true crime is, and people
Yeah.
like kind of like. I don't know,
Fame,
fetishizing
yeah.
like
Yeah.
serial killers. You know what I mean? Who knows?
But was he a serial killer?
No, but I'm saying the way people sell. You know what I mean? People
Yeah,
love
he
with
just
people there.
loved killing people and threatening people with lots of guns all the time.
Yeah.
Ugh, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Anyway, all Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Did you? Are you going to talk about Griffith? Was it Griffith?
Griffith,
Are you going to talk about that? Is that coming up? Okay.
No, I mean, a lot of this, if you're coming to the tour at noon on Saturday, we're going to talk about specific graves, we're going to talk about more ghost stories, we're going to talk about strange stories that happened in the park. We're just kind of doing an overview because, goddamn, it's getting late, you know?
Yeah. Well, he shot his wife by accident.
Yeah, exactly. Out the window, 2 stories by accident in Santa Monica in her eye.
And you all go to Griffith Park, and you're like, I love Griffith Park.
Yeah, oh my God,
I love it.
And I go to the observatory, it's a good date night in the observatory. Guess what?
La La Land.
Jake Griffith, he was...
Shot his wife in the face.
He was a crazy person.
Didn't kill her.
He wanted...
No.
He didn't kill her. And she was very well liked by Los Angelinos. She promptly divorced him. He went to jail. Then he was like, hey, City of Los Angeles, you want this park?
Yeah.
Price? And they're like, no!
Yeah.
Get out of here! Go to jail! And he's like, fine. Long game, I get it. And then he's like, all right, how about I gift you this park? And LA's like, listening.
Yeah.
Well, he thought the land was haunted.
Yeah,
so he didn't
exactly.
even.
He had an ostrich farm on the land too. That's this is a whole. We did a podcast about Griffith
We
Park.
sure did, yeah.
Exactly. There's a lot of fun stuff with that guy.
And he thought his wife was conspiring against him with the Pope.
He had a very. He was a healthy man.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a really interesting history. He's in all of the Hollywood founders are in Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Well, let's talk about some ghosts now.
Ooh.
Just quickly, and then you can go to bed. So, the stages of Paramount Studios are located closest to the cemetery. People report seeing spirits clothed in 30s and 40s garb. Mm-hmm. Additionally, they report hearing mysterious footsteps wander through the studios and equipment turning on and off. Is that true?
Yes.
Not that you would know.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Great. The original producer and creator of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, haunts the Paramount lot.
Mean Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah.
Scaring the shit out of everyone.
Okay, there's the lot.
He does not haunt the Roddenberry
I did
building.
not take this from my car. There's Gene Roddenberry. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, why?
Full life.
That's not Griffith J. Griffith. Or Phil Spector. It's not everyone's like...
So he died in 1991, and he haunts the old Star Trek sets, leaving a whiff of aftershave. I love it when ghosts leave like a little scent.
And they
Yeah.
smell good.
Drakkar Noir or something
And I
like
am
that.
just a living woman. So when a ghost can smell good, it's like, relax. You're already amazing.
Maybe somebody you could maybe page it. This is something you maybe heard through the grapevine. Charles Bronson. Because his original last name was like whatever it was.
Charles Buczynski?
Yeah, and they were like, that name sucks.
Yes.
And then he just looked out and he's like, Bronson? Charles Bronson?
Yeah.
Something, a street sign?
The intersection of Marathon
Yeah,
and
that's how I got the name
Bronson.
Charles
Charles
Bronson.
Marathon wasn't going to fly, so
Yeah.
Charles Bronson.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know,
That's right.
legend has it.
Thank God he didn't live in the Deep Valley.
Yeah.
Charles Whipple. Charles Lancashire.
Yeah.
Thank God. Then there's stage 19. Spooky stage 19. Right? I wish I took that photo. And that is one of the most haunted places in Paramount, where Happy Days and Wings was shot. Most security guards refused to work the night shift on stage 19. Security guards are pretty rough when things are haunted.
Oh yeah, they've got all the stories. Definitely.
And I'm sure you can't wait on this, but it's haunted by Heather O'Rourke, the little girl from Poltergeist. How about this?
Caroline.
Right? Now, I don't have that headshot. It's not my possession. I found that on the internet. That's also my mouse.
I think she really wrote that, didn't she? When she was really young.
Yeah, she's 12.
Yeah.
I mean, she could write her name when you're 12.
Not like that.
It's
Right?
It's a beautiful script.
It is. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. What's in your
I'm jealous.
book, you
That's
know?
all.
Exactly. According to the USC Digital Folklore Archives, this is the first citation I've had in 45 minutes. One evening, a man was talking to a night shift security guard who worked on stage 19 about the paranormal activities that go on at the studio. The security guard told the man that almost every night he hears running and laughing on the catwalk above the set, which is where Heather liked to play when she was on set on Happy Days. Also, unsafe. Don't let little actor girls run through the rafters. It was a different time. Anyway, the security guard also told the man that sometimes they'd see the little girl playing on the stage. The man asked what they do when they see her. The security guard replied that they usually just tell her to leave and she runs off. I love that. A little girl actor that takes direction. Even when dead. The man decided that, of this testimonial from the Digital Folklore Archives, that he wanted to test this out for himself. The guard led him onto the stage at midnight and bid him good luck before shutting the stage door. The man walked around and waited. He prepared himself to hear the running on the catwalk or just to see Heather playing, but nothing happened. Finally, after 20 minutes or so, he decided to provoke the spirit a little by telling her to come out and play.
Carol
Oh. We just use her regular name.
Heather O'Rourke. Doesn't sound as good. Heather O'Rourke. Doesn't sound as good.
No, you're right. Not a second after the words left his mouth did the man feel a hand brush across his lower back. Kind of sexy, though.
It was a different time. Is that what you're going to say?
He immediately ran off the stage in terror. Outside, he told the security guard what happened and that he didn't exactly expect anything to happen. The security guard laughed and told the man that his expression looks just like the expression of the editor for Wings, not because of Wings, but because that he saw when he was editing the shots, Heather's face in the background.
This is very Wings heavy. The most I've ever talked about or anyone's talked about Wings in a while.
Exactly.
Nice.
The ghost of Wings
Ooh.
just haunts our spirits.
Yeah.
Back in Hollywood Forever, one of the many ghosts that possibly resides within the cemetery isn't Rudolph Valentino, but instead a ghostly woman in black who visits him to bring flowers.
She shoos people away, right? Is it something
She
like that?
kind of shoes. There's a bunch of them
Yeah.
too. Okay, there he is. Valentino died at 31, pretty young, on August 23rd, 1926.
From a curse.
From a
He
curse.
was cursed.
An ulcer. Yeah.
That's why he died so young. He got a cursed ring.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't read this
The shop owner warned him that the ring was cursed.
Why is he selling it? Don't sell the ring.
That's really, it's his fault.
I don't know.
But Valentino had the ring, died really young of ulcers. The ring was given to his lover. She didn't die, but she got really sick and her career never recovered.
Oh.
She gave the ring to someone.
That's worse. That's worse.
I have it.
Way worse than death. And then it was given to her friend who was a singer. He was shot and killed.
Whoa.
He gave it to another guy who died in a truck accident. He gave it to his brother, and at this point,
Yeah.
everybody knows that the ring is haunted, so the
Yeah.
brother put it in a safe house, locked it up.
Then
and
Phil
it was
Spector got
stolen.
It's tangled in the wig as we speak.
I'm taking creative liberties here with the information. Sorry.
Cite your sources. Then the ring was stolen from the safe house. The thief was shot down,
Jesus.
in pursuit of the ring. Then it was locked away in a bank, and some guy wanted to make a movie about Rudolph Valentino. Took the ring out,
And died 50 years
put it
later.
on the actor, and then the actor died.
You can't make that up, Marta.
These are facts.
Yeah.
Curses are facts.
Curses are. If you take away anything from this podcast recording, curses are facts.
Yeah.
All right.
So now the ring is in a bank vault, but a lot of people have tried to steal it, and it survived a lot of fires, but there's also theories that it has been stolen.
Wow.
So check your rings.
Yeah.
Check your rings.
Everyone here looks great. We talked about that, so it's no game here.
No in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can look great and die.
Ooh. Ooh. Is that a challenge? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so Valentino died. It is suspected that 100,000 fans gathered outside the funeral home in New York City. It's even rumored that a wax replica was utilized at the service in order to protect the real body of Rudolph Valentino and keep it safe from his adoring fans. As his body was brought back to California, fans gathered in railroad stations across the United States to simply catch a glimpse of the train carrying him. It's great. It's like an election.
But I think, like, the way we kind of elevate celebrity now, it kind of, it makes a lot of,
He's also, they say he was like the first sex symbol.
Yeah, totally.
There's
Until the Cassidy's.
Yeah.
Apparently in movie theaters, women would faint in the aisles when Rudolph Valentino came on screen.
Wow.
He's such a cool name, that's why, though.
Yeah,
His name is so
Rudy.
freaking cool.
Right?
Yeah.
Man.
Googleemi's not that great. Really, Googleemi. 86 that, please.
We're respectful, right? On a scale of not respectful to absolutely respectful. Where do we laugh?
Valentino laughed.
Thank you.
And he's like, hey, take this ring. That's what we do.
So even a plane flew overhead, raining thousands of rose petals down on the proceedings. Glamorous.
Yeah.
So he is in the second hallway on the left side of the cathedral mausoleum. So after he was laid arrested, the real mystery began. On the anniversary of his death, the crypt was visited by a mysterious woman in black, clad from head to toe, including a black veil. She left roses at Valentino's resting place. Every year she returned. Did some pics of that too. What's that? just slowly, not a script, like really low key.
Other than that, she seems great.
One suspected rumors that the woman was Pola Negri, who claimed to have been engaged to Valentino at the time of his death. In the 40s, a woman named Marion Watson came forward and proclaimed that she was Lady Black, that Valentino had proposed marriage to her before she died, and that he had fathered at least one of her children. Other women also came forward with outlandish claims of their pet. There's a bunch of photos like this where it's just like women.
One more terrifying than the next.
Exactly. Finally, a woman named Deetra Flame came forward.
Oh, jeez.
That's your favorite part. Supposedly, when Deetra was very young, she became seriously ill and was in the hospital. Valentino was friends with her mother and came to visit the sick girl, bringing her a single red rose. A little too romantic for a kid's hospital. It's a
different time, though. Yeah.
He told her, "You're not going to die at all. You're going to outlive me by many years, but one thing's for sure, if I die before you do, please come and stay by my side, because I don't want to be alone either. Please come talk to me." So Deetra recovered shortly after Valentino's visit, after he passed away, remembered what he said, visited him yearly, but never publicized her story. She finally came out when too many pretenders began appearing, citing herself as the Lady in Black, and by 1954 she became one of the many ladies visiting his grave, causing an annual memorial service. Frustrated at the large production that was being made of her annual trip, she stopped visiting for many years before resuming wearing street clothing in 1977. In 1984 she passed away and was buried. Her tombstone identified her as the Lady in Black. Many visitors still believe that the original Lady in Black, whoever she may have been, still spiritually visits the grave, placing flowers on it, her ghostly presence still paying respects to Valentino. Ooh. I stumbled over a little bit of that, but not all of it.
It's intense.
Yeah.
What else? What I feel you got something, Paige. I feel you got stuff.
Was the ring not enough?
No.
No, so Valentino probably definitely haunts Hollywood forever, but he'll also come over to Paramount.
His lunch break. Hit that commissary.
Do you?
Now just hop on by the lemon.
Yeah, Lemon Grove. Come through Lemon Grove.
Exactly.
And there's a building on the lot that's named after him, and security guards say that they can hear tap dancing because he's a dancer before he's an actor. So he's
it's
still
great entertainment.
Yeah.
It's not bad. Then we got a couple more to go through, but I gotta put my password in here too. Also, well, you don't need to see this. Clifton Webb died in 1966. He was the original Mr. Belvedere. He haunts the Abbey of Solms mausoleums. Strange lights, draft of cold air, smells of cologne, again the cologne, and whispered voices have been reported coming from the mausoleum. He is also supposed to haunt his old house at 1005 Rexford Drive in Beverly Hills. Even when he was alive, Webb believed that his house was haunted by a ghost, and after his mother died, he believed that her spirit moved in as well. Whoa, so it's like his spirit, her spirit, another spirit. How many spirits live in a Beverly Hills home? Many. He had a friend in psychic that had an old throne, that the chair is supposed to be a place of honor, essentially memorializing Clifton Webb, and that is also supposed to be haunted. He's supposed to sit in it, and actually if women try to sit in it, they are thrust out of the chair.
good.
All right. Exactly. So, here we go. There he is. The last spirit said to reside in Hollywood Forever's walls is the ghost of Virginia Rapp. She's got kind of a Keira Knightley vibe to her, let's say.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Sure.
Okay. Wow. I get a little more support for my
I see
co-hosts.
In the mouth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like bended like Beckham times.
There. So she attended a party on Labor Day in 1921 in San Francisco at the St. Francis Hotel. The party was in celebration of a recent contract that Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, and he should have his own episode as well. But she was celebrating him. During the party, she became ill. An ambulance was required to come get her, and a few days later she died at the age of 26. Scandal ensued with claims that he had raped her. After 3 high-profile trials, the first 2 ended up with hung juries. Oh boy. Arbuckle was eventually found not guilty, but his career never recovered. now in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, there's supposed to be an icy coldness around her site of her grave, and the sound of sobbing can also be heard as well. Sorry, Virginia.
If you stare at that long enough, it freaks you out, man. I feel like it's like, now she's gone.
Now she's gone.
Yep.
And then finally, Lemon Grove side. It's the entrance. It's the thing that.
Part of like the page.
Oh gosh.
Little quickie little thing.
There are other haunted sound stages. Stage 25 is haunted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. By your costumer. So.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, that's you hit a lot of the good ones. Then you'll hear more about it on the tour, I'm sure.
Yeah, the tour's gonna be great.
Definitely.
It's at noon at Hollywood Forever. We meet right outside the gift shop. So if you want to buy something, I made a little map, and we'll go into even more depth about the specific people and their stories in the graveyard. It's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be a wholesome time. He'll say.
Yeah. And I guess what this has been.
This has been Hollywood Forever and Paramount Studios episode of
Ghost Town. WME Studio 71 for Big Podcast
Thank you
happens.
so much for coming on the
Paige
podcast.
Smith, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all very much. We have a podcast. Download it, listen to it, get more episodes. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
thank you.